Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Moving back home as an adult isn't failure. It might actually be the smartest financial decision your generation can make.
Okay, but my mum would reorganize my entire life within a fortnight and I would lose my mind.
That's not a counter-argument, Alex. That's just your mom.
It's a very relevant data point.
Okay, welcome to Sunk Cost. I'm Sophia, he's Alex. Two friends, one mic, and a lot of opinions about money. And if you've been with us for a while, yes, this is the same show with a new name. We've finally leaned all the way into what we always end up talking about. Money, life, the psychology of why we do what we do, and what modern living actually costs you. If you're new, welcome! Perfect timing! We're now 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And today, we're diving into something genuinely happening everywhere right now. Why is everyone moving back home? Alex, quick. Have you ever moved back in with your parents?
Not properly. There was one brief humbling stint I'll get to later, but as an actual move, no. And not because I'm too proud or anything noble like that. Purely because my flat, as tiny and overpriced as it is, represents the only sliver of independence I have left in this world, and I am not surrendering it.
The flat that you complain about literally every episode.
It's mine though, isn't it? It's my terrible, damp, overpriced little flat. I love it.
Okay, so here's why this topic is everywhere right now. In the US, the percentage of adults under 30 living with their parents is higher than it's been since the 1940s. The 1940s, Alex. And it's not because people are lazy or whatever the older generation thinks. It's rent, it's student loans, it's the cost of literally everything going up while salaries just don't.
And it's not just America, to be fair. In the UK, it's the same thing. The stats are wild. I think something like a third of adults in their mid-20s are still living at home, and that number just keeps going up. And people are still acting like it's this shameful secret.
Right, and that's the thing that gets me. The shame around it. Because the economics have genuinely changed. Like, the deal that previous generations had, work hard, get a job, rent a place, save up, buy a house, that deal is just broken now. And we're still judging people by rules that don't apply anymore.
No, but this is exactly it. My dad bought his first house at 26. 26! On a single salary, in London. That is now completely science fiction. You could not do that today. It's not even close. So when people act like moving back home is some kind of personal failure, I just want to go, mate, have you seen house prices recently?
3 times the income ratio in your parents' day versus now. At least. Some cities, it's 10 times.
It's absolutely mental. And yet somehow it still feels embarrassing to admit you live at home. Why is that?
Where do you think that shame comes from, though? Like, culturally, where does it start?
I reckon a lot of it is this very Anglo-American idea that adulthood equals physical independence. Like, the second you can legally do things on your own, you're supposed to prove it by leaving. Which, when you say it out loud, is kind of a strange way to define being a grown-up.
Exactly. And it's not even universal. In Southern Europe, in East Asia, in Latin America, living with your family well into your 20s and 30s is completely normal and doesn't carry any stigma at all. It's just how people live.
So we've essentially built a culture where the most financially reckless option, paying half your take-home salary to a landlord in your early 20s, is considered the mature, adult thing to do.
When you put it like that, it sounds genuinely insane.
It is insane. I spent my first 2 years in London paying rent that I had absolutely no business paying. I was skint constantly. I was eating sad sandwiches for lunch every single day. And everyone was like, oh, good for you. You're independent. Independent of what? Money? Joy?
Nutrition, apparently.
Genuinely, yes. My diet was tragic.
But I also think there's something real underneath this shame that we shouldn't just dismiss. Because some people genuinely are moving back home, not because of economics, but because they're avoiding something. Like avoiding building their own life, their own routines, their own identity separate from their family. And I think those are different situations.
Right, so you're drawing a line between someone who's moving home strategically, saving up, paying off debt, building towards something, versus someone who's just retreating.
Yeah, and I think the shame gets applied to both situations equally, which is unfair. But the retreat version is a real thing that does happen, and it's worth naming.
Fair point, although I'd argue the retreat version is probably a much smaller slice of the pie than people assume. The narrative that young people are all just lazy and going home because it's easy is doing a lot of heavy lifting to cover up the fact that the system is just stacked against them.
Oh, 100%. The structural thing is real. I just don't want to swing so far the other way that we pretend there's never a psychological component.
What does the psychological side look like, in your view? Like, what are the actual risks of going back home?
I think the big one is regression. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean it literally. You go back into a space where you have a role, a dynamic, expectations that were set when you were 15. And if you're not conscious about it, you can just slip back into that version of yourself really easily. Like, you're suddenly arguing with your mom about dishes and you're 27 years old.
Okay, that's horrifyingly specific and relatable.
Yeah, I've heard things.
I will say, and this is a genuine confession, I went back to my parents for 3 weeks one summer, right after things ended with Jess, and I was an absolute mess. Not because of being there specifically, but it was like the house made me feel 17 again, and I didn't have the emotional resources to fight it. I was just reverting. Mum was doing my washing, Dad was asking if I wanted dinner at 6.
That's actually really interesting, though. Because that wasn't the house's fault. That was you at a vulnerable moment. And the environment made it easier to not have to hold yourself together.
Yeah, exactly. The structure was doing the work that I should have been doing myself.
And I think that's the distinction. Moving home because you have a plan is completely different from moving home because you need the world to stop for a minute. Both are valid human things, but you need to know which one you're doing.
How do you know, though? Like, in the moment, how do you tell the difference?
I think it's whether you're moving towards something or away from something. If you can articulate what you're building, saving for a deposit, paying off debt, launching something, that's toward. If the main feeling is relief that you don't have to make decisions anymore, that's away.
That's a proper useful framing, actually.
Thank you.
Don't get smug about it.
I'm not getting smug. I'm accepting the compliment with grace.
Okay, so can we talk about the parent side of this? Because I feel like we always talk about it from the young person's perspective, and nobody talks about what it's like for the parents when their adult kid comes back.
Oh, that's a good angle. Go on.
Because I think for a lot of parents, at least in the UK, maybe America too, there was this whole identity built around the empty nest phase. Like, they raised you, you left. They rediscovered each other or whatever. They turned your room into a home office. And then you show back up with all your stuff, and suddenly they're doing the shop for 3 again.
That's real. My friend's mom literally cried when my friend moved back. Not from happiness, from disappointment. And she felt terrible about it, but that was her honest reaction.
And that's a brutal thing to navigate, right? Because your parent loves you, they want to help, but they also had a life that was just starting to be theirs again.
I think the families that handle it well are the ones that renegotiate the dynamic explicitly. Like you sit down and say, here are the rules. Here's what I'm contributing. Here's how long I'm planning to be here. You treat it like a flat share, not like a homecoming.
The word flat share in that context is making me slightly uncomfortable, but I see what you mean.
I know, it's weird. But genuinely, the ones where it becomes this unspoken, indefinite, fuzzy arrangement, those are the ones that blow up.
Because then everyone's got different expectations and nobody said them out loud. And resentment just builds up silently.
Exactly. And the kid feels guilty for being there, the parents feel guilty for feeling annoyed, and nobody talks about it because it seems ungrateful or something.
And British families especially are absolutely terrible at that conversation. We would rather just suffer in polite silence for 18 months than have one slightly awkward chat.
I feel like that's a very accurate self-assessment.
We are a deeply repressed people, and I say that with enormous affection.
Okay, but here's a question. Do you think the stigma is starting to break down? Like, genuinely? Or are we just seeing more people talk about it online and assuming that's the same as the stigma going away?
Ooh, that's a proper distinction. Because talking about something more openly online is not the same as actually changing the social norm, is it?
No, and I think there's a lag, like the discourse has shifted, people are more comfortable posting about it, there's less immediate judgment in comment sections. But I think in actual face-to-face social situations, on dates, at work events, when someone asks, "So, where are you living?" I think the internal cringe is still there for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. I know people who live at home and they'll say, "I'm staying in my family home at the moment," like they're an aristocrat between country estates. Because saying I live with my parents still has this weight to it.
Staying in my family home is incredible.
It's a very specific kind of linguistic gymnastics, very British.
But I think what is genuinely changing is the peer group effect. Because when you're the only one you know who lives at home, it feels like a personal flaw. But when half your friend group is either doing it or has done it recently, the calculus completely shifts. It just becomes a thing people do.
Like, it normalizes through critical mass. Once enough people are doing it, the narrative has to shift because reality won't fit the old story anymore.
Right, and I think we might be approaching that tipping point. Slowly, but it's moving.
Do you think there's a generational handoff happening here too? Like, when our generation eventually becomes the parent generation, will we have a completely different attitude toward our kids moving back in?
I've thought about this, actually. And I think yes, but with caveats. Because I think we'll be more understanding of the economics. We lived it. But I also think there's something in every generation that wants their kids to have an easier time than they did. And part of that is wanting them to be independent. So I don't think the tension fully disappears.
I think I'd be fine with my kid moving back in, as long as there was a plan. I would not be fine with indefinite vibes-based residence.
Indefinite vibes-based residence. That's going on the shirt.
Someone put that on a mug. I want royalties.
Diego would judge any adult who moved in without a plan, just so you know. He has very high standards.
Does Diego have opinions on financial planning? Because I feel like that's a very specific skill set for a cat.
He sits on my behavioral economics books, so basically yes, he's absorbing the information.
Brilliant. Can he consult on my oat milk budget? Because apparently that's also a problem.
Oh, we're talking about your oat milk now?
We are not talking about my oat milk. Moving on.
Okay, I want to push on something because I think we've been a bit soft on the economic argument. Like, yes, rent is insane and house prices are insane and all of that is real. But I want to ask, is moving back home actually solving the problem, or is it just delaying it?
How do you mean?
I mean, if you move back home, save money for a year or two, and then move out into the same broken housing market, you haven't fixed anything. You've just postponed the same impossible math. The structural problem is still there.
But that's not an argument against moving home. That's an argument for fixing the housing market. Those are two different problems.
Sure, but I think there's a version of the narrative where moving back home is smart and rational, becomes a way for the people who should be fixing the structural problems to say, see, young people are adapting, everything is fine. It becomes cover.
Okay, that's actually quite sinister, and I hadn't thought of it that way.
And I'm not saying people shouldn't move home. Obviously, they should do what works for their situation. I'm saying we should be careful about the narrative. Individual solutions to structural problems can sometimes take the pressure off the people who need to feel that pressure.
Now that's a real tension. Because there's this thing where every generation adapts to the conditions they're given. Side hustles, moving home, house sharing at 35. And the adaptation looks like resilience. But it's also just absorbing the damage.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the thing I most wanted to say today. Moving home can be the right individual choice and a sign that something is deeply broken at a system level. Both things are true at the same time. We don't have to pick one.
Wait, that's the reframe, isn't it? Because the whole debate has been framed as, is this a personal choice or is this a systemic failure? As if those are opposites. But they're not.
They're not mutually exclusive. Individual smart moves can coexist with collective dysfunction.
And the people who say, stop complaining and just move home if you need to, are solving the wrong problem. And the people who say, moving home is giving up, are also solving the wrong problem. They're both missing the point.
The actual conversation is, why have we built a society where one of the most financially sound things a young adult can do is move back in with their parents? What does that say about what we've built?
And are we okay with it? Because I feel like the normalization could cut both ways. Either we normalize it and use that to fix the stigma, which is good, or we normalize it and stop feeling the urgency to change the conditions, which is bad.
That's the risk. Normalization without structural change is just lowering expectations.
That's a slightly bleak way to put it, but I think you're right.
I'm usually right when I'm being slightly bleak.
I hate how accurate that is.
Okay, so playing devil's advocate for a second. Is there any version of this where moving back home is genuinely, unambiguously a good thing? Not just pragmatic, but actually positive?
Like beyond just saving money?
Yeah, like are there people for whom this is a gift rather than a compromise?
Honestly, yeah, I think so. I think for people whose relationship with their parents is actually good, like genuinely good, not fine, there's something real about getting that time back. Because your parents aren't around forever, and most of us are going to spend the majority of our adult lives living separately from them.
That's actually a beautiful way to look at it. And I think it's the angle nobody talks about because we're so focused on the financial mechanics.
I don't know if I could do it with my own parents, if I'm honest. Not because I don't love them, I do. But we're quite different people, and I think we're better at loving each other from a bit of distance. Which sounds terrible, but I think it's true.
No, that's actually very self-aware. Knowing that about yourself is important. Some relationships genuinely work better with space.
My mum would rearrange my bookshelf by color, and I would have a breakdown.
By color, not by genre?
By color, just aesthetically. The books mean nothing. It's all about the rainbow effect.
Okay, you cannot live with her. That's decided.
It is absolutely decided. The flat stays. Damp walls and all.
What about the Mini? Can it survive the commute from your parents?
The Mini would be fine. The Mini is always fine. The Mini is the most reliable thing in my life, and I won't hear otherwise.
The Mini that broke down twice last month?
Those were minor incidents, and I don't appreciate them being brought up in public.
Receipts, Alex.
You and your receipts.
Okay, final boss take time. Here it is. I think the most honest version of this conversation is moving back home is a completely rational response to an irrational world. But the move itself doesn't change the world. And if we want things to actually be different in 10 years, the energy that goes into removing the stigma also needs to go into demanding that housing, wages, and the cost of living actually get fixed. Don't just adapt. Adapt and push back.
Yes, that's it. That's the actual answer. Not one or the other. Both.
Don't let the individual solution become an excuse for collective inaction.
I think that's the most useful thing anyone has said about this topic, and I've been reading a lot of takes on it online.
Reading or watching YouTube videos about people reading.
I've been trying to read more.
There it is.
I had 3 tabs open about this topic, and one of them was definitely a YouTube video. I'm not going to tell you which 3.
Look, I'll take it. You did the research. The format is between you and your conscience.
Can I add one more thing before we wrap? Because I think there's something we haven't said, which is the shame around this is almost entirely a performance for other people. Like, the actual lived experience of being at home, for most people, is fine. It's the imagining what other people will think that's crushing. And that gap between reality and projected judgment, that's where all the misery comes from.
That's so true. And it connects to something broader about how much of our major life decisions, where we live, what jobs we take, when we get married, are made based on what we think the story should look like from the outside, rather than what actually makes sense for us.
We're performing adulthood instead of just doing it.
We're performing adulthood instead of just living it. Yes, that's it.
See, this is why I do a podcast with you.
This and the fact that you need someone to call you out on the oat milk.
I need you to stop bringing up the oat milk. It is a perfectly reasonable coffee choice.
Black coffee. That's it. That's all you need.
I am lactose intolerant, and I deserve joy.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
Thank you. Finally, some compassion.
All right, that is our show for today. Here's where I land on this. Moving back home isn't failure. It isn't giving up. And it isn't a sign that you haven't figured out adulting. It's often the smartest financial move available in a world where the old rules just don't apply anymore. The only thing to watch out for is whether you're moving toward something or running away from something. Know the difference. Make a plan. And talk to your family before the resentment builds up in silence. The stigma is loosening. Let it go faster.
And maybe call your parents more, even if you don't live with them. Because honestly, life is short, and they're not going to be around forever. And that bit got to me a little today.
Yeah, same. Okay, this Wednesday we're back, and we're going somewhere a bit different. We're asking, is the wellness industry just selling us anxiety? Like, who actually profits when we're told we need fixing? What's it really costing us? The apps, the supplements, the $40 candles? We're going deep on that one. It's going to be a good one. Same time, same place. I'll see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday. And if you liked today's episode, share it with someone who's either just moved back home or is definitely thinking about it but hasn't told anyone yet. You know who you are.
We see you. No judgment. Bye, everyone.
Bye.